Well, hello, and welcome back, everybody. How's it going? AJ O'Neill here, and we are going to work on a little series I call Sharpen the Stream, which is where I automate the meta processes that we do here. So, for example, every time I start a stream, and you can see this in the prior sessions of this, I set up a lot of this that way, maybe not all of it, but when I'm about to start a stream, I open up one of the files that is part of a particular series. So it's called project. I guess I could call it series. It doesn't really matter. But this one's called Sharpen. That's what this series is. It's Sharpen the Stream. So I call it Sharpen. And then I put in here the title template that I want. And then every time sometimes I change the title a little bit. And then I'll change what the subtitle is and what the description is and hashtags. And that's basically what I go and I copy and paste on Twitter and I copy and paste in the Discord. By the way, hey, what's up, D-Larn? Long time no see. I mean, we saw each other at the meetup the other night, so that was good. But other than that, it's been a little while. But so if anybody wants to join in on the Discord, feel free to pop into introductions and say hello. But when I announce in the live streams channel what's going on, the thing that I've copied and pasted, let me bring this over here so you can see it, is from the output of running my update stream command that I've created. So let's see. I'll just bring this over like this. So you can see this is what I copy and paste. And then I go paste it on Twitter and I just get rid of the @ here. And then I go paste it in the Discord channels and I get rid of the hashtags because those don't necessarily refer to channel names. And I get rid of the dot at the end, which is necessary on Twitter for the making it so the links don't disappear. Sorry. I'm actually having a little bit of trouble breathing, not because there's anything wrong, but I have some of the antifungal shoe spray and I just sprayed it on my shoes. And so I've got some of that. It smells kind of strong. My shoes actually aren't in here. They're in there, but I still got a good waft of it as I was coming back in. So anyway, before we get started, let's go ahead and have a quick word from our not really a sponsor, Mr. Mountain Dew. Pop a top, my friends. Oh no, my fingernails are a little short today. There we go. And open focus. All right. Ooh, with that ceremonial ritual out of the way, let's go ahead and get started. Oh yeah, so I didn't actually say what I was going to do, did I? What I'm going to do is this YAML has been great for a quick little ditty to get me up and started, but now that I have a little bit more time to invest, I actually want to turn this into a web form, and I want to do a couple of different things with it. So let me just put some to do. What have we got here? Oh, that's a lot of to-dos. I think I'm going to call this to do old because I'll probably never get around to it. And then we're going to create a new to do. Let's just call that .md. So what we're going to do is create web form and backend and move to JSON because I don't like editing JSON by hand. YAML's a lot easier to edit by hand. Number 2 is I want to be able to create basically template groups per project / series / playlist. And then number 3, there's some more stuff I want to get around to, such as the Otter plus blog plus Git. I don't know if we're going to get to that in this one. I think we might be able to get to these 2 bits. So that's going to be the goal. It is currently 11:30 p.m. I need to get to bed by 2 a.m. So around 1:30, y'all just tell me to shut up and go home, okay? That'd be appreciated. Thanks. Hey, welcome. Would love to know what brings you here. And if you got any questions, comments, whatever, as always, feel free to, just be your random, regular, normal, everyday self. Drop any questions you want, related or unrelated. We're just coding and hanging out. So let's see what I've got here. First of all, let's see what Git status says. All right, so I've got a bunch of series here. And so if we ignore the YAML files, let me just go ahead and go into Git Ignore. And I'm just going to put in star.yaml for now. And then we could put in not example.yaml, because I think there is an example.yaml, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, there is. So we wouldn't want to ignore that one, but we want to ignore all the other ones. So let's look at Git status now. So this one, okay, that's a little bit better. I guess there's more stuff in here. Yeah, there's a lot of things in here I have to consider. Okay, let's first just take a quick look at what's been modified that's already committed. So we looked at the .git ignore, no biggie there. Here, oh, I was just modifying this. This was just kind of make prettier, basically. So I'm gonna add that one as a make prettier. Let's see, what else have we got? Okay. So I found this was kind of a bug fix. So there's some old stuff here that I just haven't committed. We're going to go through that first. So what I found is that when I use Restream to set the channel metadata, such as the title and the description, sometimes it doesn't set. So what I decided to do was to set the titles first, only the titles, and then to set the description next. And that was that piece. And then what is this here with the update? I think this was a bug fix as well. Something about the state of the current session and something or other. Anyway, it seems to be working now. So let me go ahead and just commit these four things, I guess. So first one, git ignore. Yeah. This is just chore. Ignore my project files. And we won't have to do that for long, but whatever. And then this one was basically, this was just a chore. This was make prettier, essentially. I mean, it's not quite make prettier, but it is make prettier. That was just to make, what it is that sometimes I actually want to go search through the JSON. I want to grep through it. Maybe I'm not going to amend that commit to give it more detail, but sometimes I want to grep through the auto transcription of the stream and be able to look for specific special words to find out which streams mention those words. And if it's all just a one-line JSON block, that makes that difficult to do. Whereas if it's white-spaced JSON, prettier JSON, then that makes it easy to do. So that was the deal there. What else have I got? This was kind of I'm going to call it a workaround. Set titles first, then metadata. With description. All right. That was a workaround, and then this update bit, it looked like that was a fix. Correct, latest, previous, state. Sure, let's call that. Push this all up. Okay, and then what else we got? These things I'm not going to worry about right now. Oh, interesting. Example.env. Don't we want to include that? It seems that we would want to include that. Let me just pull this over here real quick. Let me see if I've got anything in my .env. I've got nothing in my env. How about my env.secret? I've got nothing in there either. So that makes me think that I'm only using the env files further down. So probably in the otter stuff. Hey, how's it going? Dummy Tutos, what's up? And I'll get to that comment in just a second. Let me just finish this thought process I'm in right now, and then I'll get to that comment. Okay. So let me just see here. env is being used in Otter download, in Restream demo, and Otter upload. We're not using it. Why is the camera freaking out? Hey, camera, quit freaking out. Calm down. You're okay. We're doing fine. I'm assuming from the sound the camera was making that my face was going in and out of focus because it was doing the racking thing where it's zzz, 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 zzz. Let's do it. Shh. Calm down. Calm. Yeah, the camera's acting up. So the software that I use to control the camera, I made the mistake of updating it. I knew that was a bad idea. If you're not having a problem with software, don't update it. So now I can't actually see the preview on the camera itself because with the update, for whatever reason, the camera's built-in preview on the LCD turns off and the preview is only available on the screen. And though I don't get the OSD from the camera, so I can't touch it and tell it, hey, make sure you're focusing on my face and not on everything else. But what do you do? Okay, so I'm trying to finish the stream of thought. I think the example.env just I just got rid of the example.env. So we're all good there. And then I've got my to-do. You're driving me nuts, camera. Okay, my face should be right there. So I'm going to tap. Oh, no, it's not working. Okay, let's see. Do you prefer JS-based logic versus JSON path expressions when working with JSON? All right, Mario, help me understand what you mean. Can you give me an example of the two? So I don't use a special library such as JSON path. What I do, what is this time thing about? I'm just opening a file here. Oh yeah, I don't know why that's there. So I'd say this works well. Thingy dot other dot leaf, something like that can work well. I don't really like to have extra abstractions on top of things, and I think that JSON and JavaScript marry very well together with the array methods that you get in JavaScript and the object methods, so object.values, array.forEach, that sort of thing. So I'm pretty happy with that, and I prefer things that are low context versus things that are high context. So I prefer simpler code that uses fewer features, that is more explicit. I actually prefer, it depends on what it is I'm doing, but in general, for code itself, I prefer a more imperative style because it's just easier to read. You don't have to guess. You don't have to know a lot. Someone can look at what you did and they can see what you did. Whereas there can be a million different selector convenience functions, but then you have to go look up the documentation, all these convenience functions to figure out what they actually do. And so I'd prefer just to write a few extra lines of code, 2, 3 extra lines of code here and there to be really clear about what it is that I'm doing and not have to go, just fewer things in my brain because my brain is small. And then there are cases where I like the declarative approach, but I like that more in the HTML space. So for example, I much prefer Vue to React because Vue is declarative. It leaves all of the logic for how something is done in the JavaScript, which is where I believe it should be. And then in the Vue code, you just say what you want done, not how you want it done. Whereas React, everything is all about defining the intermixing of the HTML and the CSS and the images and everything all together. I don't like that very much. But anyway, I hope that answers that question. Feel free to ask a clarifying question in return. See, agree on the JS-JSON marrying quite well. Use JSON path, which has implementations loosely based on XPath expressions for creating XML data. Yeah, I've seen the JSON path type thing, but I don't feel like I get a lot of benefit out of it. Okay, Domilias. Would be great if you put your GitHub URL in the description in the Twitch channel. Well, I have a few, but yeah, let me see about that. Oh, yeah. Solution for those of you working in Java. Yeah, okay, so then I don't know. If you find that I would prefer, I forget what the module was called. I actually did a video on this. Over the years, it got over 100,000 views. It's I think it's called JSON, JSON with Jackson. There's a library in Java. So let me pull this up because I can show you one in Go that's really super clear and easy. And sorry, Dumalass, I will get you. Cool AJ6 is what I am all over the net, but I am also Beyond Code Bootcamp and the Root Company. So I have, depending on what type of repo it is, I'll put it on one of those three on GitHub typically. If it's just my random stuff, it's Cool Age 86. If it's something that's geared towards teaching and learning, it's on Beyond Code Bootcamp. And if it is something that is more geared towards what I share with clients, then it's on the Root Company. But so I gave you my Cool Age 86 there. So there's this thing called JSON to Go, and Jackson is very much like this. So here's JSON to Go, and I kind of now I need some example JSON so that I can show you how this works. But Jackson for Java is very similar to this. So I'm just going to json.org and grabbing the example that's right there. So json.org/example. I'm just going to paste this in here. Boom. So you have to name a couple of things that get named auto-generated because it can't understand exactly what it was from the input. But as you can see here, this is a very simple and direct conversion. And you can put in very, very complex JSON as long as it has some sort of schema that it follows. If it's just completely random JSON with no rhyme or reason to it, tools like JSON to Go and Jackson can't really do much for you. But as long as there's some sort of schema that it follows where you can expect that this title is always a string and gloss list is always an array and so on and so forth, that as you iterate through the object that there's certain patterns that repeat and they're not super variable in terms of the type data about them, then you can use tools like this, and then you can use your native methods in Go or Java or C#, etc. So what do you think about that? And that was directed at Mario there. Okay, so I'm going to go back to this, and I don't know what I was doing with time.js. Am I actually using that? Oh, I am using that. Okay, I think that I want to switch to using, I think I have this available for Node. Install, save, xtz. Because that is where, let's see, time xtz should be good here. To local ISO string. That should be correct. I'm just going to double check on that one to make sure that's right. But I was working on time.js and I decided, oh, this really belongs in my xtz package, which does time zone stuff. It's simple enough that it kind of deserves maybe it deserves its own package, but it's just a to ISO string function. Anyway, let me check this out real quick. So I should be able to put in here new date, and I should be able to get out, yep, that's the local ISO string. We just switched from -7 to -6. So that is correct. There we go. So if you're interested in that, that one's called xtz.js. If you just search for it, it'll be the first thing that comes up. It works in Node and your browser. I'm just going to pop a link there. And then the link right here goes to the GitHub. Maybe I should link that instead. But here we go. XTZ. Appreciate you going on a tangent. Yeah, that's the best streams that we have are where we're hanging out together and going on tangents, for sure. Yeah, so Jackson, when I used Jackson, it was literally 10 years ago. So I would imagine that it has changed very much since then, and there may be better tools. But that was very, very simple POJOs. No class hierarchy to it, just, well, I mean, there is class hierarchy to it because there's class hierarchy and everything, but no inheritance. No, it wasn't class-oriented, inheritance-oriented. It was object-oriented, not in the sense that people throw around the term object-oriented, in which case they normally mean inheritance-oriented, but object-oriented in more of the object sense. And that's my preferred approach because, you know, you just use your standard sort tools and whatnot. Anyway, I'm going to get out of here now. Oh, I can take these down. This is from the previous, the last session we did. Duncan, who joins in on the channel quite often, had just failed an interview, which I also would have failed. And it was on this super contrived, obtuse problem about football. Really, it was about a binary search, but they couched it in weird language. I don't know why they do that. If you tell someone that's not true, it doesn't help them solve a problem better, and it doesn't really screen them for the type of role that they're going to have. So telling someone that you're tracking football scores when really what you want them to do is a binary search on an arbitrary random list of numbers and a reference values to inputs is, you know, just there's nothing to do with football. Anyway, that's what that was about. So what I was looking for here, and I'll check that comment in just a second. We don't have a server. Might hate myself for this. Oh, does anybody know how those popular front-end frameworks pop up your browser independently of which operating system you're on? Because I think I actually would like that functionality here to be able to do Npm Start and have it just pop up with the browser. I'm familiar with how to do it. I guess on OS X you can do open and then you can give it a URL, which maybe is what they're doing here. So you need open example.com. And then on Windows, you use start instead of open. And then on Linux, I think it's XDG open. So if they're just doing that, I guess I could code that up again. But it seems like one of those things that maybe there's a snippet of code that I could just copy. I prefer not to install modules when it's something that's that stupid simple, but we'll see. Anyway, I'm going to go ahead and set up a server here. And I don't even know if I'm going to use Express for this because this is going to be so simple. I don't know that it's actually going to need it, but we'll see. It might be useful for convenience. I'll figure that out as I go. So we're going to have HTTP. We're going to have let server equals HTTP dot create server, and we're going to make some sort of app to hand it. So here's our app. We're going to have rec and res. And we can, of course, you know, easily turn this into a middleware or an Express function and then just wrap it with Express and it's going to be the same thing. So, and then let's see, do I want, yeah, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to do mkjs. I'm just going to call it app.js. I'm just doing this so I can get my standard, boilerplate. I put that in a function, a bash script, sorry, not a function, a bash script called mkjs, just so that I can do this more in a streamlined fashion. Okay, so I'm going to move all this down actually to here, and then I'm going to put here port equals process.env.port, or what do I want to port do I want to put this on? Maybe we could call it AJSS, AJ Stream Service, which would be on the telephone. That would probably be, I like to do port numbers by telephone numbers, and I'll get to those comments in just a second. I'm just going to finish my thought process on this. So if I open up the phone thing, I always forget, does the keypad actually start at it starts at the number 2. Yeah. So that would be 2577. That's how I like to do my port numbers, so that when I start up applications, and then I always print them out, you know. So right here, let me go into this bit. So there's my main function. So I would put listen, and then I'm going to print out what I'm listening on. So I'm going to do console.info. I never do console.log for things that I'm not going to throw away. If I'm going to throw it away, if before it commits, it should be removed, that's a console.log. Console.info is for stuff that I actually want to stick around. That's how I distinguish it easily. So listening on, and then we'll just give it server address there. Well, I guess let's do it this way. Server.listen. Yeah, this is how I'd like to do it. And then what else? I got to figure out what I want my app to be. For right now, I'm just going to do res.end and then put nada. All right, port. And we did say, so when we do listen, we want to be able to listen on, I think it's port first and then address, which I'm going to limit that to 127.0.0.1. For the time being, let's just put that in here. Bind equals, that camera is driving me nuts with its racking. I don't know why it's racking. I wish I could see the preview on it because usually my head's just a little bit out of frame or something. Or I just need to tap on it so that it's tracking, say, my eyes instead of tracking my shoulder or something like that. But because it's in some weird mode because I upgraded the software, I'm just going to have to suffer. Let's see. Where is that software, by the way? Okay, now let me check comments here. Alan K's OO with message passing. Yeah, I'm not sure if I'm 100% on board with the message passing or not, but yes, definitely more Alan K style object-oriented, meaning oriented around objects, than the class-oriented, inheritance-oriented, hierarchy-oriented stuff that gets taught in college for the last 20 years. To me, Go is a great example of a true object-oriented language. It's actually oriented around objects. And JavaScript can be, but typically people don't like to program that way. Okay, I'm going to call this bind adder for some reason. I don't know why I'm going to call it that. I just don't, bind doesn't make sense, and adder seems too broad. It seems that I should have another name for that, but whatever. Okay, so notice I do all caps for constants, or things that are constant, like I don't use the const keyword because it's dumb. And then package names should start with a capital letter. Oh, bless me. Okay, we'll get rid of that. So just with this, I should be able to run npm start. Okay, .env. Let's go ahead and install that. Kind of surprised that doesn't exist in here since it exists in the sub repos, but whatever. We'll do it. Okay, cool. So I should be able to go to localhost 2577 and I should get back nada, right? 2577. There we go. I got nada. All right. So from here, what I want to be able to do, and this is part of the reason that I'm binding on 127.0.0.1. This process is really intended just for me. I might add some authentication or something to this later, especially if I get around to publishing this elsewhere. But for right now, yeah, I think I'll bring in Express because I just want the convenience of it. So let's go ahead and do that. And I do Express. Express is not a package. It's a single function. So hence Express is lowercase because we're not bringing in a package that has different functions on it. We're just bringing in a single function. And then in which case we're going to do let app equals express to create the app. And of course we need to have, actually I don't want to do that even. This would be, hold on. This is going to be server. This is going to be HTTP server. And then we're going to bring in at root async router so that we can use async functions, which is just, it's the normal Express router with just a little tiny bit of very, very clean wrapping around it. So I think this, like, okay, I think, is that how we can do it? I think that's how we can do it. I get confused sometimes with precedence when you're calling new on something. Let's, Prettier will tell us what the truth is. Let's see if prettier gets rid of the parentheses. That's how we know. Yeah, prettier got rid of the parentheses. So I guess with new, it's whatever the last thing is what gets newed. All right, so we can get rid of this app here. I guess, yeah. And then let's say app.use. Oh, you know, I really got to get my boilerplate together for Express. I'm going to go back to my GitHub repo. It's one of those things where I keep on saying it over and over again, and I kind of halvesy do it, but there's just lots of different ways that I end up using servers. So I just HTML boilerplate. No, I think I actually put it over on the Beyond Code one. GitHub.com Beyond Code Bootcamp. This is not actually in a state where I really want to share it with people yet, though. But I have this Express starter, so I'm just going to copy some stuff from that real quick, just so that. Where is? Do I not have the? I don't even. This one is so undercooked. I don't even have my JSON stuff in here. I do have a branch where it is, but I just don't have that active right now. But I have a nice starter template. If I was going to work on a real app that's going to have authentication, that's going to have this other stuff, I do have a starter template for that. It's just not cleaned up in a way that I can go put it on GitHub, but I am just going to copy from it locally here real quick because I know where that is. I've got one for Go as well, although I can't remember where I put the Go one because it had a silly name. It wasn't called something as smart as boilerplate or starter or seed. Maybe it did. Yeah, I called it something else. I went looking for it the other day because it's been a while since I've done Go, just because sadness. All right, let's see here. On my other screen, I'll copy this stuff over. On my other screen, I'm just grabbing something from one of the other projects here. Particularly, I just want to grab the body parser because I know we're going to need that. Is that not in here? I know it's in here, but... Oh, here it is. We're going to use it like this. There it is. Okay, cool. And yeah, I prefer to be explicit about these sorts of things. 100 KB is certainly a reasonable limit. And I'm going to bring this back out. Body parser. So we're going to do let body parser equals like that. Might even put a little bit of separation here to distinguish between the different phases. Native modules, third-party modules, actual invocations. Hey, what's up, Del Boy? How you doing? Thanks. And by the way, everybody, feel free to like, follow, sub if you like how this is going. Feel free to ask questions, related or unrelated. Okay, so now we've got our /API route. So what I'm setting this up for, like I said, is basically it's going to be a web form that represents that YAML that we were looking at earlier, which I guess I could pull that back up on the screen in a minute. But we're just gonna have a web form instead of having YAML is the first bit, and we need to be able to pull from an existing template. So we're gonna have to have a directory that is our project files. We're gonna pull one of those in and be able to click on it to select it as a template. I think is the way that's going to go. All right. So now that we've got our body parser, I think the first thing we want, should I call it a series or playlist? I think I'm going to call it playlists. So we're going to have an app.get playlists. And I think what I want to do is first we're going to move my YAML files into playlist files. And we're going to have a YAML parser. Do I have a YAML parser currently? Am I using JS YAML? No. I think I just did it really ad hoc. No, YAML JS. That's what we're doing here. Okay, so I'm just going to use that one again. So again, I'm just gonna put that with the third-party modules. And I'm going to do, let's go back up here with the first party stuff. FS is require fs.promises. I've become really inconsistent whether I use one type of quote versus another, and a lot of the spacing and stuff like that. You'll notice I've gotten really sloppy over the years because I use better tooling now where I don't have to hold shift and quote to type a single quote. I just type quote, and then when I save, then it gets updated for me, you know? And I don't bother to get my spacing aligned correctly in my editor, which I really should. In fact, I'll do that right now because it's kind of stupid that I don't. But I don't bother to configure my editor with the spacing anymore because let me actually do this and then finish that thought. So I don't know why. I was on a 4 kick for a while, and so for a long time I was doing 4, and then I went back to 2 because in JavaScript 2 just feels right, but in Go 4 feels right. And so that's why I had it in 4, was because I was primarily doing Go, but now it's been, you know, a good 6 months since longer than 6 months since I was primarily working in Go. Now I'm primarily working in JavaScript, and I just haven't changed it because Prettier makes it so easy. Whoops. That I don't have to worry about it. Oh, whoops, that was not a comment. Somebody should warn me. And I'll get to those, speaking of comments, I'll get to those comments in just a second. I'm just gonna, again, finish my line of thought here. And for those of you that are following and liking all that, just, you know, I want to be aware. I might seem pretty cordial right now, but I want everybody to know. I don't want there to be any false pretenses here. I am an equal opportunity offender. I'm a libertarian. So just want to let you know out of the gate. I try to keep it mostly to code stuff, but my my charming personality of being an equal opportunity offender will shine through from time to time. I just want to let you know up front. Okay, so let me check comments here. Howdy. Go development threw me off too. Go development is awesome. It did not throw me off. Let me tell you this. Go development is the way that my brain works. When Go was first introduced and I saw the very first public conference talk from Google about Go, I literally understood, and I wasn't even that experienced yet, but I understood everything they were saying. Well, obviously not everything, because there were some new concepts and stuff like that, but I mean, they were basically saying, this is how AJ's brain works. And we developed a language that's mapped to AJ's brain, and we called it Go. That was kind of what that conference felt like. So Go in of itself did not throw me off, but switching back and forth between languages throws me off. And so I have been working a little bit more in Go recently, and I hope to continue to get back to working in Go because that's what I love. It's kind of like this. I love country music. Country music is what I love. I hardly ever listen to country music. I mostly listen to stuff that's got a thump, 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 kind of electronic video game music, VGM, that kind of stuff, or classical, because that's what it's easier to code to. Country is too much in the feels and in the experiences, and too much story, too much you got to cognitively interpret or take in while you're listening to it. Whereas VGM and classical, there's no words, there's no story. It's just, this is what it is. Okay, so now we're going to do, oh yeah, all these functions should be async, of course. That's why I'm using, where did async router go? Oh, it's right there. This is why I'm using async router. Again, it's not much over Express. It's not some sort of frameworky thing. It's literally just fixing, it's a workaround for the bug in Express where Express never got proper async support. It's exactly, there's no differences between using async router and the Express router other than it's very, very thin lines of wrapper code that add the async support so that you can just use the async keyword and have the error propagation work as it's intended to in Express instead of doing the wonky-do stuff that you see in most of the tutorials. Okay. So what I was going to do from this is I'm going to read from a folder, and I'll probably put that where that folder is in an environment file. In fact, let's go ahead and do that right now. And this one I won't put in all caps. I don't know why. But we're going to call this playlists dir. And I'll get to those comments in just a second. Playlists. Maybe path dir. I don't know. It's always hard. Let's go with that. And we're going to do read dir, playlist dir. And I think, I can't remember. Do we want, shouldn't matter. So there's options. You can put an option in here to get a bunch of, you can get the directory data, because there's a couple of different syscalls. The way this works, you can get just the listing of the directory as names of nodes in the directory. Nodes meaning files, directories, blocks, sockets, etc., FIFOs. I just call all of those nodes, they're directory nodes. And then there's, I forget what the option is, but you can pass it in, and then rather than just giving the names, it'll actually give some of the file info stuff. The option might be called file info. Anyway, but we're just going to go with nodes for this one. I'm not going to pass any options because I don't need to know if it's a directory or not. I don't plan on recursing through here. I plan on, if the node doesn't start with a dot or an underscore, then it's one that we want to be able to use. So I will do a quick filter on this. Nodes equals nodes. We'll just filter out. Well, I guess we'll filter in, sorry. We'll say, and I'll get to those comments in just a second. I think I've said that about 10 times now, but I see the thing moving. It might be my own bot making comments. That sometimes gets me, but because it'll invite you to the Discord and stuff. All right. So here, what was I going to do? Oh, I want to check that the name. So we're going to check that the name does not begin with literal dot or underscore. So let me put here this. Oh, you know what we could do? I actually would prefer to do this now that JavaScript has it. What is it? Starts with, I think. If not starts with dot and not, no dot starts with this. And then I think also we want no dot ends with, and I'm going to put a, let's see, let hidden equals, this is how we're going to do it. Sorry, I'm messing things all up, but here we go. If a condition starts to get long, just give it a variable name. It's going to be easier for everybody to understand it, including future you. So no dot ends with dot JSON, or, and we could, do this in a couple of different ways. We could have maybe done a 2 lowercase on that. So if not hidden and target. There we go. So those are the nodes that we want. Now let me take a look at these comments here. What does it actually mean? Equal opportunity offender. That's a really good question, and I'm glad you asked. Actually, I'm not necessarily glad that you asked. I'm ambivalent about you asking. Equal opportunity offender means that I really don't care. That's what it means. I don't care about your feelings. I don't care about your friends' feelings. I don't care about my feelings. I don't care what you believe. I don't care if you're Christian. I don't care if you're atheist. I don't care if you're Muslim. I'm just going to say what I think, and it's probably going to offend you. For example, if I were to talk about my religious views, it would offend you if you're Christian, and it would offend you if you're atheist. Most of my views, being in the libertarian space, are in this nice vein where everybody can be offended equally. No matter which side of the aisle you picked, I've picked some niche opinion that you can enjoy all of the fulfillment of letting your internal desire of wanting to find offense from someone. You can find that here with me. That's what equal opportunity offender means. No matter what your views are, I have views that are probably in some strange way the opposite, but not actually on the side of your enemy, so to speak. That's what equal opportunity offender means. Let's see. Delboy, Love Go. That's awesome. I remember listening to your podcast back in the good old JS Jabber days with the rest of the gang, 2012 through 2013. Those were good years. Thanks. Yeah. So JavaScript Jabber is still going strong. I think that sometimes we have really good episodes. I mean, this was the case back in the day, but when I was in my college days, I really loved learning about all the new frameworks that were coming out because it seemed exciting. But then it's been 10 years and there's still a new framework every week. It stopped being exciting. You know, novelty, what is it? Novelty can wear off. So we all like novelty, but when you've got novelty, or meta novelty, I don't know how you want to describe it, but that can get old. So if everything is changing so often that something being new doesn't matter anymore, that's what I would call novelty or meta novelty. And so, to be honest, I don't enjoy being a host on JavaScript Jabber as much as I used to, because I don't feel like I have as much to contribute as I used to, because I feel that computer science and programming, I know where it is that I stand. I found the ruts that I like, I guess you could say. And occasionally someone surprises me and they introduce me to a new concept or an application of a concept that makes more sense in a different context than the way it's been explained before. So Rust is a good example of this. Rust, I've got a love-hate relationship with Rust, not as much as my love-hate relationship with JavaScript, because that goes a lot more on the hate side these days. But there's interest. You know, when I first heard about Rust, I thought, well, that sounds dumb. Do we need another manually memory managed language? But then as I had people that I respected got into it, I started to realize, okay, there are some differentiators here that make this a contender in the space. And Zig is something that I really feel like they got some stuff right that Go and Rust got wrong. And so when I look at Zig, nobody cares about Zig yet, and maybe nobody will. I think Nim and VLang, I don't know if VLang is going to go much anywhere from where it is. VLang was kind of an attempt to be an in-between of Go and something like Zig, I think. And then Nim just, some of that stuff just grates against me. I just can't handle it if you say casing and underscores don't matter. I'd rather you pick an opinion that I don't really agree with, the way that Go does, for example, with its camel casing that kind of feels a little weird sometimes, than just saying, oh, it doesn't matter, write it however you like. Because if you go to grep through code, we don't have a tool that will make it easy to grep through code where you can be doing snake case or camel case, or no case or mixed case. I mean, you can do case ignore, but anyway, now I forgot what I was going on about. Let me see what we got here in the comments. Okay. All right. So again, for those of you joining it, as you come and go, feel free, if this is entertaining or useful to you, feel free to give it a like, follow, sub, whatever. And also, you can drop any random stuff you want, basically, in the comments. I'll answer. It doesn't have to be related to what we're doing right now. I didn't drink this while it was nice and super cold. I let it get a little warm. Anyway, so I got this YAML reader. So now we've got the nodes that are the nodes that I'm going to care about from the playlist dir. And what I'm going to want to do is return these to the browser. And if it's, well, I guess whether it's JSON or YAML, it doesn't matter. I'm just going to want to parse it with the right thing. So let's do, I guess for the rest of these, let's do an await. Do I have AJScript in here? No, I don't. I don't have AJScript in here. Okay. So AJScript, let me see. I think I've got this under A. Do I? Yeah, AJScript. AJScript is a language that I'm working on, which it kind of started as a joke, but not really a joke. but it's just a subset of modern JavaScript. So there are some things that JavaScript can't be fixed because they introduce new bugs is the thing. When you're changing the language and you're introducing new bugs that weren't there before, it just makes it difficult. But the idea with AJScript is to provide a subset of the language that has as few exceptions as possible and is consistent. So for example, in AJScript, the tooling will just replace single quotes or double quotes with backticks so that you only use backticks except for a couple of exceptions because JavaScript is broken, and when they add things to it, such as backticks, they don't. There's two exceptions to the backticks. One is in a require. And that's because I don't know if that's actually going to be an exception or not, because I think it will just be an exception to actually use variables in a require. That will be a no-no. But double quotes for requires, and then also it has to be double quotes for object keys, because when they introduced the variable key syntax with the brackets, they didn't extend that to the template strings. Why they didn't do that, I don't know. I think it's because I just think they're not very smart. I don't know how else to say it than that. I don't think that they actually program in JavaScript. I don't know. I don't know what's going on with the people on those committees, but how can you introduce a new feature to the language and not be aware of the other features that you're introducing to the language? And I mean, how would you introduce a template string to the language and not be aware of the places where you use strings in the language? That just fundamentally doesn't make sense to me, that you would break the language syntax that you just introduced. I don't know. I don't even know what I'm saying. It just sounds confusing. It's confusing to me. Okay, so what we're going to do here is we're going to read in. I'm going to rename this to name. We're going to call it file name. Sure, or we could call it playlist name. I guess it doesn't really matter. And we're going to do, now up here, I need the path. Whoops. What did I do? Oh, crap. What happened? What? I'm just going to quit out of this. Get back into it. Here we go. Sometimes the buffer gets messed up if you type too quickly. You know, if you're a speedster typer like me, it's the double save that does it. Because sometimes I save, I change something, and I save again so quickly that the buffer gets messed up. You probably didn't see it, or you may have seen it, but just there was a couple of extra characters that were on the screen that shouldn't have been there. Okay, so I've got my playlist dir, and then my file name. Anyway, it just makes me angry what's going on with the JavaScript committees. It's made me angry for a long time, and I guess the anger comes from weakness, generally speaking. You know, you don't get angry when you feel that you're in control of a situation, or if something doesn't affect you. You feel angry when you feel that you've become subject to someone else's decisions or what they're doing, and you feel personally powerless in the situation. So I like JavaScript. I have a moral, spiritual belief about JavaScript, because there's your rational reasoning and then there's the way that you feel about things, and it's important to be able to distinguish those and to seek to distinguish those. And I can recognize that a lot of my feelings about JavaScript are based on what I love about JavaScript, and I feel that JavaScript is being abused. And to me, I imbue personal attributes to JavaScript as though someone is doing harm to JavaScript. Obviously, JavaScript is not real, so no one can do harm to it. But that's the way it feels to me, is that people are hurting JavaScript, and because it's something that I grew up with loving, to see it being twisted in ways that are against what its benefits are, it gets my knickers in a knot. Anyway, so this is going to be the full path. is what this is going to be. And then we're going to do fs.read file, and we're going to await that. And then we're going to do text equals read file full path UTF-8. And then this is where we should just be able to, well, I guess that technically speaking, the YAML parser should be able to do it all. Let me go check in the other file that I've got here, because YAML can parse JSON. So I might just say, yeah, I might just say, I'm not going to bother detecting which file type it is for now. I'm just going to say that this parser is going to parse whatever it is that I get, and this is going to be the data. And I guess I actually want the map of this, if we're being honest. I don't even know if that actually makes sense to say, but let me go get I have a promise.map. So I have things marked as things that are going to be part of the AJScript standard library, and they're going to be defined in a way where they are namespaced appropriately, like promise.forEach and promise.map, but where they're not in conflict with anything that could be standardized. Because one of the worst things that could be done, and probably will be done, is that someday, well, I won't say probably will be done, but someday we could get the missing promise.forEach and promise.map. And if we did, it'd probably be implemented in some obtuse way that doesn't work quite right. And so these are the obvious implementations that do the obvious thing, that give you good results. And I would not at all be surprised if they do get implemented, if they're implemented in some way that doesn't quite make sense. So that's why the underscore for these is that I don't want to ever come in conflict with the standard library, but I also wouldn't want something such as an underscore or a $sign where it's, here's just a bucket. Things should be scoped to what they belong to. That eases the cognitive burden. It makes it easier to think about things. So playlists dir, we're going to get this data, and then I think we're just going to return this data. And then I'm going to do let playlists equals, and then we're going to do res.json playlists. And that should be it. And if we get an error, we get an error. Okay, so now I'm going to create another, I'm opening up another tab, and I'm going into that same directory so that I can run npm start. In fact, I want to do watch exec -r. Yeah, I've already got this in my history. This is a little nugget for y'all. If you want to get watch exec webinstall.dev, you can see watch exec there. And install it with the webby command. Oh, I don't have express installed. Let me npm install save express. How do I feel about TypeScript? This is something I've been asked a lot. I should probably have just a video or a little short dedicated to TypeScript. In fact, Josh, maybe we will edit this. Josh is the editor, to be the how do I feel about TypeScript segment. Let me go ahead and get this out once and for all. TypeScript, and we can bring up the Wikipedia page. In fact, let's do that. TypeScript is not a scripting, it is not an enhancement to JavaScript. It is a scripting language for C#. So Wikipedia, TypeScript. So if you were to develop a typed language that was a superset of JavaScript, what you would end up with is something that looks a lot like Go. You would not end up with something that looks at all like C#. So let's see if this is still in here. License, blah, 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 blah. There we go. So, Anders, or I don't know if it's Anders or Anders. I assume it's Anders because he's Danish, and I don't think they have the diphthong sound. Lead architect of C#, creator of Delphi and Tubar Pascal, has worked on the development of TypeScript. Okay, so and if you just think about it, C++. This is not people who are familiar with and love JavaScript creating a language to enhance JavaScript. What this is every single project that Microsoft has ever created in C# in the public space outside of Microsoft has failed. All of Microsoft's products that are aimed towards consumers or developers, they all fail, right? So the Zune failed. I don't know if that had anything to do with C#. That's not really relevant to this, but just Microsoft has a long history of everything that they do fails. Their Metro thing, that failed. I can't remember the other examples. I had 3 or 4 examples that I normally rattle off when somebody asks me this question. I blanket on them right now. But basically, everything Microsoft does in C# fails to gain mainstream attention and adoption. So Microsoft has this army of C# developers, and it turns out that they were wrong and the web succeeded. And so now they have this army of developers who are not skilled at doing what is the most important thing to do, which is web development, and they have to repurpose them. So how are they going to repurpose them? They get the person who created C# to create a scripting language that can run, almost run in a browser, right? And that is what TypeScript is. So TypeScript is not intended for JavaScript developers. It is intended for C# developers. If you look at all of its complexity with the hierarchical inheritance, also TypeScript is not very good at understanding JavaScript native types. TypeScript is intended to be a bridge for someone that wants to write extremely complex, inheritance-oriented, class-oriented, not object-oriented, but class and inheritance-oriented programming, and they want to bring that to these C# developers so that to make JavaScript more accessible to them. It's not intended to make JavaScript more accessible to web developers. Despite all the hype and they've created great tooling, and you got to give it to them for that. But Microsoft owns GitHub, Microsoft owns NPM. Microsoft is making it so that you get a special badge if you write your repo in TypeScript instead of JavaScript, and so on and so forth. So they have a lot of sway and making it appear cool to use TypeScript. But if you compare software engineering principles, and I've got creedsofcraftsmanship.com. If you want to learn about software engineering, this is my curated list of places to start. And one of the talks that I listened to recently, but that I've been referencing a lot, I think is down here in Just Plain Good Talks, Problem Decomposition, Philosophy of Software Design by John Ousterhout. This was on Talks at Google. It's available on YouTube. I'll go ahead and give you the link right here. But the software engineering principles are in direct contrast with the principles that create something like TypeScript. It doesn't make it easier for people to read or write. It makes it more difficult. Now, that said, the tooling that the TypeScript linter provides, I think, is good tooling. I just wish that it was tooling that was invented with the intention to make it easier to program in JavaScript, rather than bringing C# tooling over to JavaScript. Because I think that if they'd focused on JavaScript, I would be 100% behind a lot of the tooling that they've created and the introspection, but they kind of, pardon my French, but they half-assed it. They didn't buy into JavaScript. And if they had, I think the tooling would just be so excellent. But they kind of said, well, what's the minimum amount of JavaScript that we have to do in order to sell this C# script thing? That's the way that it feels to me when I look at the TypeScript tooling. I get so excited about it because it's so good, except that it's not really. I mean, it adds a lot of benefit. I use it myself. I use some JS doc, and I use some of the TSC for type hinting and type linting, but it frustrates me that it doesn't actually implement JavaScript well. Anyway, this was the philosophy of software design. Let me copy the title over there so I can actually paste that in here. Bill Gates still uses Zune over iPod. Well, nobody uses an iPod anymore. So anyway, I highly recommend looking at these talks on language design and just Zen of Python, Go Proverbs, Zen of Zig. All of these are really smart. They're just really good. Dry Wet Aha, the Agile Manifesto to some degree. This is more about architecture of a project than it is about language design. I disagree with a lot of the Rails doctrine, but I think it's good to look at. Prettier Rationale needs to be up higher. I'm going to edit that right now. So the Prettier Rationale I would put up here with Zen of the Zens and whatnot. I think that it's in line with those. The Rails doctrine, I actually almost want to move it to the bottom because there's some good stuff in there, but there's also stuff that I think is more sugary and somewhat in contrast to what the Ruby community, the larger Ruby community, would buys into. And again, Crockford on JavaScript, I think that Crockford, as much as people don't like him, and as abrasive as he is, I love him because, one, I'm an abrasive person too, and I don't care either, just like him. But his ideas are spot on. He can articulate things really well. But anyway, I won't go into this any further. But just my thing on TypeScript is that it is not well designed for software engineering. It is designed to transition an army of existing developers over to another tool chain and to utilize the properties that Microsoft owns to generate buzz around it, to get people to buy in it through gimmicks like giving badges and whatnot. I think the tooling is great in terms of what it does do for JavaScript, but I wish that they focused more on JavaScript and that it was better as JavaScript tooling. So that's that. The end of rant. Other than to say that I really do appreciate the type hinting, type linting thing again. Okay, so yeah, Josh, let's edit that and let's get that as but what do you think about TypeScript? And then I'll make a reply command for it. When people ask me what about TypeScript, I will link them to this video that is this clip thing. Hey, what's up? Nanto Naka. Steve. I'll just call you Steve. Steve sounds great. How you doing, man? Welcome to the channel and whatnot. Okay, so let's see if we actually, where am I at for time? It's been an hour and I've just a pecking on the surface. Hardly done anything yet. It's okay. Part of this for me is that I just needed to have another hangout and chill. I've been doing some really focused work on various Dash projects, Dash Digital Cache. And I've needed just a break to do a little bit more of my own stuff. We're trying to get ready for, we're putting a down payment on a house. And so I've been trying to do just more and more contract work. But the last couple of days, I just needed to take a break to just do some stupid stuff that doesn't make me any money, but just hobby project stuff so that I stay fresh and feeling good and all that. Okay. So I've got this where it needs to be probably. Let me run npm start over here again, or let me run watch exec dash -r. There we go. Okay, server.address. Oh, whoops, I have a boo-boo, but this is okay. And this should be HTTP server to distinguish it from. A lot of people don't know this because it's not clear in the documentation, but you really should not use the Express server as your app. And it's kind of outlined in the documentation, but there's a distinction between your app or your primary router and the Express server, which manages a bunch of state that is supposed to cascade through all of your routers that you're using. So I'm just of the opinion, if you've been here a while, you know this, I'm of the opinion that it's better to write 3 lines of code that are clear, that you're not going to have to go back and edit as your application moves forward, than it is to write 1 line of code because you're afraid of getting arthritis or something. I don't know. This is one of the great things about tooling is, it can do autocomplete for us. And it turns out copy and paste works really well. I know a lot of people, they don't know that because you young people under 30, you grew up on phones and you didn't know that copy and paste was a thing. Okay, I'm being a little bit belligerent, but no, I'm not really making fun of the people as much as I'm making fun of the phones. It is getting so hard. It's getting so hard to copy and paste on a phone because it won't let you select the text. It wants you to select the post or the discussion or whatever. And I can't just copy the phone number. It wants me to, but But copy and paste used to work really well, and I hope that copy and paste makes a comeback. But it's great in a code editor. It's great to just copy and paste some code. Okay, let's see. Love Crockford, listen to him at some conference, St. Louis. He's a genius. Yeah. Well, at crazycraftsmanship.com, I've got his. If you haven't listened to the full series from part one back in 2011 or 2010 or whenever it was, all the way to, I guess the latest one it's not part 9 because it's not officially part of the same series. It's just spiritually part of the same series since I think he's switched positions and stuff, but it's a continuation of that talk. Really, part 0 was JavaScript, the good parts that he gave at the Google Tech Talk. Then he did the 8-part series for Yahoo, and then independently he did the finale. Well, not really the finale, but the latest. I don't know if there's gonna really be another one after that. Express versus Happy. I guess on one hand, the question wouldn't be Express versus Happy. It'd be Express versus Fastify, since I think Happy is kind of fallen out of favor. I guess Happy is probably going to be stable because I suppose that the idea is that Walmart needs it for themselves, for Walmart Labs, and so they will probably continue to work on it, and that's good. I think it's always good when something is namespaced. You got @Happy. I think there's one other organization they use for a lot of the modules, so that's good because it tells you that there's a community of people that really care about it, and being stale isn't necessarily bad. I mean, Express is dead, and it still works pretty well. If you use @root async router, then you can have a good experience with Express. But the thing that I like about Express is that it's a very thin layer on top of the node HTTP. They present it in I think a terrible light. But the truth of it is that it's, meaning in their own documentations, they take all these little one-line shortcuts to make Express more complicated than it ought to be, so that, oh, the example's only 3 lines long. Look, here's an entire web server in 1 line. It's kind of stupid, right? We can copy and paste 5 lines and that can be a web server, and that's not something ridiculously hard. But anyway, that's the thing that's detrimental about Express. But in general, it's very light in terms of what they're building on top of Node. And there's a few useless abstractions, but in many, if not most cases, it's one-to-one between standard Node HTTP and Express. And at the very least, you can easily use standard Node HTTP from Express. And that's what I tend to do because I don't like useless abstractions. I don't like little function helpers, chainable function helpers that, I mean, it's just not that hard for me to hit tab, So I like Express. When it comes to Fastify, the thing about Fastify is that, like Happy, I guess it's a little bit better than Happy from my opinion in terms of Fastify is a little bit more easy to work with at the Node HTTP level. Happy seems to be a little bit more difficult. And there's something to be said for making a clean break and saying, we're going our own way. Screw y'all. I do that plenty. But I just don't, I'm not sold on it. If you've got a great talk that you would like to share with me that I could watch, I love watching presentations on this type of stuff where they really go into the philosophy. I could potentially buy into it. But as of right now, I just keep on going back to Express because Express is, although it's got a bajillion dependencies, which I hate, it's kind of it's the simplest thing. And it's the easiest to reason about. It matches most closely with the Node HTTP module. Now, don't get me wrong. The Node HTTP module has a lot of crap in it. Somebody rewriting everything in their own stack from scratch, I can't begrudge them for it because it's actually a kind of a good move in many ways. But I find the ergonomics of Express to be quite nice. And I find, although, yes, the advanced features of some of the other ones are nice, it's just Express is simple. And the way that you can do routing in Express, I don't know how Happy encourages you to do routing, but you can you can do very simple routing in Express, and I like that. Now let's see why this didn't work. /API/playlists should not give us an error. Playlists. Let's make sure that let's make sure a couple of things. One, does this actually restart? Looks like it did. 1, 2, 3. Let me just go ahead and save this again. All right. 1, 2, 3, 4. Let's go ahead and just refresh just to make sure. Okay. So that did restart, and we are not able to get to /API/playlists. Is it because, is it because I did something stupid like a typo? Sometimes it's very hard to see a typo because L and I look similar. A little dust on the screen can mess something up. Forget to pluralize something. But let's take a look here. No, that's not a typo. Okay, so that leads me to believe, what's wrong here? I don't think I ever did server.use app. I think I forgot to do that part. So in our main, well, just before our main here, I guess it doesn't really matter when I do it. I didn't do server.use app. So I should have done server.use, and I guess not using the mounting syntax is fine for this. There we go. That's what I forgot to do. So now everything should be hooked up, and we have no directory playlist. That is exactly right. So let's go ahead and create a playlists directory. Playlists. Let's go ahead and move all of the YAML files into the playlists directory, and then we're going to move the example.yaml back out. And then let's take a look at the playlist directory and see what we see. All right, so that looks just fine. I'm probably not going to get as far as I wanted to get on this, but it's okay. I actually really appreciate the conversation. By the way, Josh, if you wouldn't mind, a few minutes ago, I just went into a little QA bit about Express versus Happy versus Fastify. Let's turn that into a clip too, please. Okay, thoughts on Node versus Deno. That's the way they pronounce it, which is wrong. The way I pronounce it is Dino, which is correct, because it's obviously correct. Node versus Dino. Sorry for off-topic convo. Will Dino ever push Node over? Thanks for answering these silly questions, by the way. I really like listening to your point of view. Well, Del Boy, you are welcome. Thanks for asking questions and making it fun for me to be here with you. I'm going to say I really thought that Dino had something interesting. What I thought that Dino was doing right, of course, you know I don't like TypeScript, but there is something to be said for having the balls to pick a side and go with it and not all this middle of the road crap. And I thought that Dino seemed to be doing that pretty well. It seems that they've backed down a little bit, which I'm disappointed about. But I think that Corona may have killed Dino. I think that it may have gotten a false start, because at the very moment that it should have been gaining momentum and really pushing forward, Corona dropped, and then all the meetups stopped and all the conferences stopped, and everybody had to get on their moral high horse about a bunch of stuff that they don't know anything about because they didn't actually, whatever, won't go into that. But I think that Corona killed Dino. Let me bring this back up over here so that we've got this as something to discuss. Also, I think that some of the problems, there's another couple things with Dino. Dino has a few fundamental flaws. This isn't really a flaw, but this whole secure by default, they solved the wrong security problem. I think that secure by default is great, but everybody's just going to turn on everything anyway, because any CLI program needs to be able, see, they went from TypeScript as first-class citizen to supports TypeScript. You know, just get your balls out of your safe box and bring them back to the table. That's what I have to say to the Dino folks about that. You know, you were on a path, stick to that path, and don't back down and go into the wishy-washiness of JavaScript. You know, pick a community, pick your language and be proud of it and stick to it and follow your gut, follow what you believe in. So I'm kind of upset that they back down from this. The secure by default, no file network environment access unless explicitly enabled. Well, duh. What app are you going to create that doesn't need those things? So I think that maybe some of the stuff that the primitives that they were building around this could be useful in other contexts. Maybe they could put more tooling around it or something. But as cute as it sounds to say secure by default, what they're securing, you're going to have to use all these things. I don't know of any tool that I build that doesn't need pretty much all three of these. Even if it's a command line tool, I probably need network access for something. And if it's a command line tool, I definitely need file access and environment access. If it's a server, I just don't know when you wouldn't need environment access. So shipping as a single executable is absolutely amazing. Absolutely the right thing to do. Reduce the complexity, make it easy, take it out of the developers' hands. Don't put that burden on the developers. Make it part of the tooling. That's awesome. Having a Dino format where we don't bicker and argue about formatting, awesome. Love it. Strong leadership there. Excellent. Standard modules, great. We need standard modules. Now, where they screwed up big time is the way that they approach the module system, because they have, and I'm kind of little personal thing. They denied putting Webby on here because they said Webby is too new or something like that, which, go look in the mirror, Dino, but whatever. Well, I guess that's essentially what, Webby is kind of like that. So they got their own thing for it now, but Webby is easier to remember. webinstall.dev/Dino, all your tools are available on Webby. Anyway, which I think, by the way, I've got the W here. Okay. So I'm trying to look for where they have their module system, because this is my other big critique. Whenever someone creates a platform for developers, they always make sure that they implement a fatal flaw that is well known and easily solved. This is part of the process that you must go through. If you don't do that, whatever you're creating isn't going to get any hype. Good solutions that are well reasoned and that don't have significant fatal problems with them don't get any hype, because you don't get anybody on Twitter saying, hey, this is retarded. Why would anybody do something so idiotic as this? And then creating a thread of 6,000 comments back and forth, boosting its popularity, right? So if you're going to create a tool, you have to do something really, really stupid that makes no sense and is just absolutely retarded in the most literal sense of the word retarded. And for Dino, that was the module system, is screw version numbers, screw having all the checks in place, screw everything that Node got right, that Ruby and Python had gotten wrong, and that Go had since gotten right, and just go. Well, actually, I don't know if Go had gotten it right at the time that they started Dino. I'm trying to think if Go modules had been announced prior to Dino being announced. I'm not 100% sure on that, actually. But if you look at the talk, again, this is on Creeds of Craftsmanship, Go with versions. So let's see if we can just find that real quick. Go with versions. I'm going to copy and paste this. They outline every solvable problem that with modules. Well, and the unsolvable problems. This is a perfect overview of everything that basically can be known about package management. And Go module solves all solvable problems, and it doesn't solve or attempt to solve the problems that can't be solved, because we can put these in two categories. There are things that we know that we don't know how to get right, so they're not solvable. But there are things that we know how to solve, and Dino just didn't even try. And then now, and it's been a while since I looked at it, but they basically implemented all of this stuff on top of their module system. to get around the problems that they created. And so you basically end up back with the same problem of NPM, where you have to have this third-party service that manages everything, and you can't actually use the URLs because you can't actually depend on them. Some of the problems people thinks that this has that it doesn't have is that modules are cached. So it's not going and downloading the module every single time from the internet. When you package your build, unless I'm mistaken and it doesn't do this, but I'm pretty sure that it did and that it still does, it's not going to have to go out and fetch those modules. But during your development process, you basically are getting any random version, which is not a good development process. So yeah, I mean, and just this, them changing the tagline again, a modern runtime for JavaScript and TypeScript. Get your balls out of their safe box, man. Just, why did you do this? It was a modern runtime for TypeScript, and maybe I'm mistaken. Let's go to Dino Land on archive.org. Let's see what this looked like 2 years ago. 2019. Yeah, see, 2019, this is when, let's go ahead and pick this big one that people cared about a lot for whatever reason. Yeah, it should have been, Corona killed it in some ways. Okay. Oh, okay, no, it says JavaScript and TypeScript on there back in 2019. Okay. So maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I just interpreted it incorrectly. Let's go back a little further. Let's look at March. Does it still say JavaScript on there? Browser-like command line runtime? That's a little bit different. Say anything about TypeScript? TypeScript? I don't know. I must be wrong because Wayback Machine don't lie. But I thought that it was TypeScript and that they that JavaScript and TypeScript. Okay, nope. I take it back. I'm mistaken. They always said for JavaScript and TypeScript. I thought at one point they were really clear that they are focusing on TypeScript, and I thought that that was good to pick a focus rather than waffling. But apparently they always waffled on it. So my bad. Okay, end of rant. Yeah, you're welcome for the trove of links. Let's see. Did you do development with IPFS? I think I may have used Webby before, and I landed on your channel. I did not do anything with interplanetary file system. I don't think so. I'm trying to wonder if I did anything tangentially related. Maybe I used one of their modules for something. When I was working on Telebit, I think I came across some of their stuff. Let's see. You may have seen me on LinkedIn. So by the way, Josh, we the cut for that. I don't know if I said to highlight this, but the bit about the Q&A about Dino, that just happened. Let's clip that as well. Dino versus Node.js. AJ's thoughts on Dino versus Node.js or something like that. But okay, so on to the next one. There's no humble way to say this. I am one of the most prolific developers in the world. I'm in the top 10,000 for sure. I don't have any doubt that I'm in the top 10,000 most prolific developers. If you go to your TV and you look in the acknowledgments under the Apple SDK, you will find my name in there. Now, what it's in there for is absolutely stupid, but my name is in there. It's the first in the list, depending on which version you have, because they changed it from lexicographical sort, case-sensitive lexicographical sort. When they deployed that version of the Apple SDK on TVs, my name is first in the list because capital A, capital J. When they switched to case-insensitive lexicographical sort, then I think there's an Aaron that comes up first, and then I'm down second or third in the list. But if you look at the devices in your home, you will find that I have written code that, you run Slack. The code that I put into Node is probably not there anymore, but there's an error handler that I put in the FS module in Node back in the early days. So by virtue of just running Slack or anything Electron, you are potentially, that line probably has somebody else's name by now because it's probably been rewritten and refactored since then. But, somewhere in the acknowledgments, on tons of software that you use, my name is in that list, right? And so I would not be surprised at all. Plus I do things like JavaScript Jabber. So I would not be surprised at all if you had run into me well before you ran into my channel, because my channel is not big at all, but in terms of me, blog posts and educational videos that I used to do better about and other things, I am pretty out there. So I apologize for my arrogance. But I don't know. It's one of those things where it's also the source of weakness, because I've done all this stuff, but then, yeah, I'm not really, I don't get the cool factor that a lot of other people that are just a little bit better than me get. Because if you get into the top, 1,000 rather than the top 10,000, then I don't know. It's just I had a lot of near misses. There were a lot of libraries that I created at the same time somebody else created, but they did a better job. Or if they didn't do a better job, they had better documentation or something like that. And so I wish I was one of those household names. I'm sorry for the vanity, but I do. I wish I was one of the, well, not household, but I wish I was one of the names in the developer community that you recognized. I'm not one of the ones you recognize, but I am one of the ones that has written a lot of crap that goes in a lot of crap. So there's that. Yes, you're welcome for sharing my expertise. Okay, so I will, let's go back to what I was originally going to work on here. So for anybody that came in to see me actually work on this stream stuff, my apologies that we haven't done much of that, and we are closing up on time. Again, I'm enjoying this. I appreciate the conversation, the back and forth. I think these clips, the ability to turn some of the stuff in clips is great. So I'm grateful for it. Please don't think anything other than that. Let's see. Always feel free to take us on a tangent. When I'm doing paid work, I will be a little bit more judicious on how long I'm going on tangents. But when it's stuff like this, it's nice. I like it. So keep the questions coming. I'll answer them. We'll turn them into clips. It'll be great. I hate using the expression, it'll be great, but alas, there I did. So I'm taking this apart because there was something else I realized that I wanted to do. And let's see if I can remember what it was that I wanted to do. I was making this parser separate because, I wanted to put it in debug mode if a certain condition was met. That's what it was. So actually I don't have to do that. This is one of those things that's the difference between the Express server and the Express router. So on the Express server, we could do if process.env.node.env, we could say if development, camera, stop freaking out. Focus on my eyes. Right here. Yeah. Okay. And stop moving back and forth. We have an agreement? Silence you. I turn my head and then it loses the autofocus. And I said this at the beginning of the stream, but I changed the software that I'm using to connect to the camera, and for some reason it caused the camera's on-screen display to go away, which means I don't have the ability to touch my face where I want it to focus on my face, and so it keeps on adjusting focus, trying to focus on whatever it's trying to focus on, which might be my ear or my shoulder or something, and it just racking focus, well, not racking, not full racking, but trying to focus over and over and over again is driving me nuts. Okay, so we can do server.set. Maybe I should put this before that. And then I think it's something similar to pretty JSON. I don't remember. Or I guess enable, server.enable. Let me go take a look at that. I forget what this one is. Express, enable, pretty JSON. JSON spaces, that's what it is. And again, it's not app.set because it's not actually a setting for the router. It is a setting for the Express server, which is weird because it should be a setting for, no, I guess it, no, this is right. I don't know why I thought it was part of body parser. Of course it's not part of body parser. It's the JSON stringifier. No, it does make sense to be in here. Okay, so this is what we need. JSON spaces. There we go. And then let's go ahead and update our environment. And let's say node env equals development. All right. And now we have to save this again because changing the env file on watch exec, we're only watching for changes to JS files. If we go back up to where that watch exec is, which I don't know where, there it is. So we're only looking for the extension JS. So I had to just save that file for it to restart. But now if we go back here and I hit refresh, ba-da-da-da. There we are. Okay. Now that's looking pretty enough. Now we lose some of the stuff here. That's okay. Now I need to get some sort of page in place. I'm going to do, so I like at the end, and I'd split these out. If as this gets longer, I'll eventually split it out. But I put all of my API stuff under API, and then at the end is where it needs to be a .get. I've gotten burned by this. I've had people, friends of mine, coworkers, get burned by this. It needs to be .get when you then use express.static, which I think we're actually technically supposed to, hold on, let me think about this. Static path equals path.join dir name public. That's the way we're supposed to do this. So then it should be static path, and then you can pass in some options. I can't remember what they are off the top of my head, but something, for example, .files, you can do that. But it needs to be .get, not .use. If you use .use, weird stuff starts happening. .use is for middleware that applies to everything. It's not for things that are actually going to typically give a response. Although some middleware, such as authentication middleware that's used on gets and posts, you will use with .use and it may give a response. But there's subtle differences in the way in the behavior for these things. So anyway, we're going to use express.static there, and then this goes against what I said earlier, where express is just a function. So I'm going to do something kind of silly, but I got my own reasons why I do what I do. So we're going to have express with a capital E for the package express, express with a lowercase e for the function that creates the server. I wish there was an express.create, and maybe there is. I should actually look into that, because then I would just use it that way, and I'd feel better about it. But, that's typical pedantic AJ right there. Okay, so now we need to have a public directory. So let's do make public. Do we have anything in a public directory already? No, we don't. And then let me go grab AJ's starter HTML template, and then I'll take a look at comments because I saw something go by. Probably just my bot, but we'll see. So where was my HTML starter here? Come on, don't be slow. Nobody wants your slowness. There we go. HTML boilerplate. I'm just going to copy and paste it. And then I need to also grab from the vendor directory. And I need to get my own version of mvp.css, my own fork, because there's a number of things that I always want to change, but I never do. For example, I think the line spacing is absolutely flipping insane. You don't need that much line spacing, and it makes it difficult to use the site. Again, it's made for a landing page, so it's kind of a different scenario than, it's not built for web apps, it's built for a landing page. But if the spacing is adjusted, then it can work decently well for web apps too. Let's see, just quit without adjusting the spacing on that. And then what have we got here? So I think if I go back now, and like I said, I still have in mind to check comments in just a second. All right, cool. So we've got our change me made by change me. And for some reason, vendor, that there's a typo in there. I should go fix that in this right now. I don't know how I got a typo in there, but there's obviously a typo in there. I think that used to say classless CSS, and then somehow I don't know. I don't know what happened there. Fix. Typo in file name source. Yeah, probably a bad commit message, but it doesn't matter for this sort of thing. All right, so there we go. Let's take a look at this again. Change me. Come on now. Oh, I didn't actually save it. Okay, so we saved it. What's going on now? Vendor mvp.css, its MIME type is not supported. Well, that's because it's saying cannot get, but why is it saying cannot get? Because it should be able to get that just fine. Come back to me. Network mvp.css header vendor. Did I spell vendor wrong? Is the file not there in the correct form? Did I make another typo? Did I put it MPV or something like that? Let's go find out. So, yeah. Public vendor MVP. Vendor MVP.css. Let's go ahead and just check. Looks right. Kind of weird. Not sure what's going on there. Get static. Going from public. Just gonna make sure I'm not mistaken. Let me try the use real quick. I could have lied to you. I could have just where did I put this thing? Oh, I put it over here. Let me bring this back. Bloop. And then I'll check comments right after I get through this train of thought here. Okay, that worked. So I may have told you a lie. Maybe it was the other way around, or maybe this is something different. Okay, so I told you a lie, and I apologize. I said exactly the wrong thing. You have to use, not get. But I'm glad that I clarified that. I mean, I'm sorry that I told the wrong thing, but I'm glad that I made mention of it. You have to use one, not the other. I was just wrong about the which one was supposed to be used. It needs to be .use for express static, not .get. But this is a class of error that is really good to know about, because sometimes you can be scratching your brain, going through all this debugging. Everything seems to make sense except that it doesn't. And it's just a matter of whether you use .use or you use .get. And that can really ruin your day and several hours of your day. The first 2 or 3 times you encounter it, if you didn't document and make mental note of that type of problem. Okay, so let me get back over here. When you were talking about committing to a language, I was thinking I need to do something to speed up my image processing. I was considering implementation of Python or diving deeper into C++. Why not Rust? Rust is, I really do believe that Rust is the future of performance for, I got to be precise about this. If you need C or assembly level performance, Rust is the future of that. Where you are limited in performance to a vertical scale, where you cannot horizontally scale, and you are limited vertically in your scaling. So what I mean by that is, Some things, for example, if you're running an image service and you can scale it horizontally, um, so that when you get a large batch of image requests, you just do something akin to, for example, lambdas, where you don't need it to run all the time. You don't need because it'd be really, really expensive to do something like lambdas for this, right? But lambdas come in handy, or web functions, or whatever you want to call it. They come in handy when you don't need to do something all the time, but sometimes you need to do a big batch of something and you need to do the whole batch quickly. That's where that paradigm of DevOps becomes useful. So if you can or should scale horizontally, you want to look into, do I just need more dedicated servers to handle this? Or do I need something where I need occasional wider capacity, but I generally don't need a lot of capacity? Or if it's something where it definitely needs to be dedicated, and I need to do as much on a single server as possible, and it's difficult to scale this across multiple servers, or expensive to scale this across multiple servers because it's just such a dedicated process. It's going to be running pretty much 24/7, or I really, really can't afford, a 10 to 20% performance decrease doing it in some other way. Rust is the time to do that. I would never recommend C++ to anyone for any reason. You could also look at Zig. But if you think that the complexity of C++ is something that you're willing to embrace, then definitely take a look at Rust rather than C++. And if C++ is the type of complexity that you'd prefer not to embrace, and you're looking at something like Python, then Zig might be what you want to look into. But if you do not have a very specific problem, then Go is the language that you should be using. If you can't say, I know that Go isn't good enough for this for reason X, Y, or Z, Go is the language you should be using, because Go has everything that you need in their standard library for just about everything. And if it's not in their standard library, it's in the extended standard library. And if it's not in the extended standard library, there's a good chance that somebody wrote something that is actually well put together. Go is the language of software engineers. So if you're looking for something that is designed for being easy to deploy, easy to work with, and extremely performant, Go is a great language to look at. But in those cases where you are getting significant losses in Go because there's some sort of implementation detail where you're losing 50% of the speed rather than 10% of the speed, or 10% is too much, that's where you look at something like Rust or Zig. Now, nobody's using Zig in production that I'm aware of, or no big names are using Zig in production, but Zig is an easy sell because Zig is to C as TypeScript is to JavaScript, kind of, sort of, in terms of you can use the Zig compiler to compile C. Zig isn't, if you have to use C code, Zig isn't an easier way to do it. And if you need to go back and forth between C code, Zig is probably going to leave you less error prone, more productive. It gives you some of that speed and friendliness of Python or Go, but at the performance of raw C, because it is C. In the same way that TypeScript is JavaScript, Zig is C, if that makes sense. Okay, now where did my cursor go? I lost my cursor. Oh, not only did I lose my cursor, my computer stopped responding. I hate that. When, with the Mac, I hate how the click on the mouse is digital, although it does let you know when something's wrong, because if you can't click, if you push down and there's no click, you know that something went awry. Okay. Now my mouse cursor came back, so I don't know what was wrong, but when I pressed on the mouse, the trackpad, it wasn't actually doing a click. And since the click, it took me a while to get used to. It probably took me about a month to get used to, because the fact that the click has about 100 millisecond delay from when you click to when it makes the sound in the built-in speaker and spins the little motor thing, the little vibrator. Because you think it's a click, but really what it is, it's a speaker making a click sound. And it's a little vibrator that's giving you haptic feedback about 100 milliseconds after you do it, which when you're used to something clicking when you click, that 100 milliseconds feels so uncanny valley. But after about a month, you start to get used to it. Anyway, Josh, with that previous Q&A, I don't actually know what to title that. I had something kind of in my mind, but talking about the C++ versus Go and Zig, that little bit, I think that could be a clip too. So this has maybe not been a super successful night in terms of actually getting the code and I intended to get done, but a super successful night in terms of having great conversation with people and being able to share opinions, or conversation might be too strong of a word since it's mostly one way, but great chat, and getting some stuff that's hopefully good for clips that then next time somebody says, what about this? I can just reference it. Not that I don't want to have these conversations again, but for the people that are regulars on the channel, hearing me say the same thing over and over again probably gets boring. All right, so that's working now. So now we need an app.js. And since this is going to be, oops, browser code, there we go. And then I don't even know if I need to do much. Let's see. We're going to have what? API playlists. And then what do we want? Cores true or something? Mode cores. I'm not actually using cores, but I want to do mode cores all the same. I like to do fetch equals window.fetch just so that we're clear where fetch comes from, that it's not from a library, that it's not an abstraction. We're not using some other fetch. We're using the built-in fetch in the browser. And then I'm going to want to let resp equals, and then let data equals resp.json. And then probably just want to go over each of these. We also need to get AJ query up in here. Whoops, where's my index.html? Camera, if you don't stop clicking at me, I'm going to turn you off and turn you on again. What was I going to do here? Camera, stop. You're really getting on my nerves. I don't know. The software I'm using, by the way, it's better than the built-in software most of the time. Cable Pro Webcam. But I think I want to downgrade to the previous version so that because if I turn it off and turn it back on and quit this and open it back up again, the little thingy that I want on my camera will come back up. But before it was consistent, and it could have been something else that happened. It could have been I hit some button on my camera by mistake that changed a setting, but I don't think so. All right, so I wanted to do what here? Oh, no. Let's just get an li in here. So ul. Oh, and I was going to put in, we're going to do a couple things here. So we're going to put in two scripts. One is we're going to put in app.js. Before that, we're going to put in, what is it? I forget what it's called. Is it unpackage.com.org? And then, I don't know, at 1.js. So that unpackage is actually CDNs in general are really bad to use for performance. That's something. Blasphemy. CDNs, not good for performance? Yeah, CDNs are terrible for performance when they're free CDNs. So if you're going to pay for a CDN and you have a DevOps engineer and they're going to set up the CDN correctly, then yes, CDNs can give you a performance boost. But generally speaking, the way that CDNs are done is for the free ones, they're done in the worst way possible, which makes them more flexible and more marketable. But they're just bad. They don't work. Let's see. There we go. I'll go ahead and grab this. Their caching's messed up. They have redirects in place. They're just bad. Anyway, we're gonna put that in there and not worry about that right now. Eventually I'll download that and include it. In fact, since I'm right here, I should have just copied and pasted it, but I'm gonna leave it for right now. Okay, so I needed a place. Let's give this a name. Let's call this data name equals playlists. So we're not going to get very far tonight at all. And then li, and then this would be data name equals, let's say, playlist. And then I don't know what all is going to go in there, but we're not going to worry about it right now. We are just going to go into our little app and get this to show, and then I'm going to call it a night. So we should be, I do need to start creating my own front-end framework, because I don't really use anybody else's, and I should take the common patterns that I have and start building a framework out of them for myself. If nobody else ever uses it, so be it. It's not that big of a deal. But this should be playlist, and then what we're going to do here is we're going to grab data name equals playlist, and we should be able to grab outer HTML from this. So this should be our TPL. Actually, this should go up towards the top, because this we're only going to do once. Playlist, we're going to say TPLs equals object, and then TPLs.playlist equals outer HTML. And then I'm trying to remember what was the way to do this. Insert adjacent HTML is what it is. I'm blanking on this. Because there's a way to take this HTML and turn it into an object so I can manipulate it and then put it into the DOM later. I guess it doesn't matter. I can just, for right now, it's just as well if I just build up a string. Okay, so for each playlist, we're gonna have playlist.what. I forgot what our JSON even looks like here. API playlists. So we have .project, .title. Okay, cool. So we're gonna have to build out some sort of thingy. So playlist.project is what we'll call this for now. And I think I'm just gonna stick that in to that HTML. But I wanted to have a string that I could use to interpolate on. So let's go ahead and put our customary string here. So I guess just name is what we're going to do. That's it for right now. That's as far as we're going to get. Yeah, Go is great. Go really, by the way, for those of you as you come and go, if you find this to be entertaining or useful, consider a like, sub, follow, etc. Not trying to tell you how to live your life unless we're talking about code, in which case I am definitely trying to tell you how to live your life. But, you know, just a gentle reminder, you know, the please say thanks and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, Go is, if you don't know that you need something else, Go should be your go-to language. No pun intended on that. And often people say no pun intended when they actually mean to emphasize that the pun was intended. But in this case, I'm not doing that sort of nerdery. Okay, so playlist. So we want, let's HTML equals TPLs dot playlist.replace. And then we want to just put in here name with playlist.project. In this case, we probably do a map on this and do let allies equal. Ugh, that looks so ugly. Ugh. But that is correct. Ugh, makes me feel dirty inside. I'm blanking on what it was that I was actually going to do here. And then here we can have data name equals playlists. This one should have the quotes around it if I'm not mistaken. And then we should do insert adjacent HTML. Let me go look this up. I don't remember this one off the top of my head. But if you don't know about insert adjacent HTML, it is, if I'm not mistaken, it is the only thing that you should be using. This is what VS Code uses. Okay, before begin, after begin, before end. There we go. This is the most performant. It's the safest, etc., etc., etc. Well, safest is a strong word because you are inserting HTML to be parsed. But this, you should not be using inner HTML to create. If you're not using text, inner text, because you want to strip it, or not strip it, but you want to escape it, then you should be using insert adjacent HTML. You should not be using inner HTML. And you also should not be using append, because both of those are going to be inefficient. Although inner HTML is probably faster than append, but insert adjacent HTML is the best and the most likely to be what you intended. Okay, unrecoverable syntax error. So what did I do? Did I forget to close a parenthesis or something maybe? Oh, I didn't add a comma. And then this one, yeah, let's go ahead and just say $ is window dot $, double $ is window dot double $. Those are from AJ Query. They're built into the console, but you cannot use them otherwise. So they're not available to applications, even though they're available to the developer console. But AJ Query just makes them available. Okay. I think that this is correct. So I think if we go back here and we look at this, ba-da-da-da. Not quite right. Something's a little bit wrong there. I'm not 100% sure why, but we're going to find out. So one thing that we need to do, let's join those on a new line. That's probably the right thing to do there. And then the other thing that we need to do is that when we ran this to get the outer HTML, we likewise, well, before we do anything with this, we should have deleted all of its children. So we should have done an inner HTML on this to nothingness, which I think that might cause a redraw. If somebody knows all the internals of the browser, the most recent stuff, I'm a little bit lacking there. I think that there's a way that you can pair things together so that you're not causing a redraw when it's not necessary. Playlists. Because we want to defer the redraw until we're done with all of the manipulation. It would be silly to do it before. There might be a simpler remove children or something. Let's see. There we go. So there's our list. So I was going to create a form for each of these, make this selectable or something. But yeah, we didn't get very far because I was yapping my yabber. But it is 1:30. I've got work tomorrow. Oh, the entire time the camera was a little too high as well. There we go. But yeah, again, so if you liked it, consider a like, follow, sub, all the things. Check down in the description for a lot of the stuff that I mentioned. I think should be in the description, or maybe it isn't. I think if you're watching this not live, there's probably more in the description because I think Josh is updating the descriptions as he goes to have my standard template of stuff. But when you use Restream, for some reason, it strips out a lot, especially all the emojis, which I use them categorically so that it actually is supposed to look nice. Anyway, but creedsofcraftsmanship.com, webinstall.dev, those are probably the two most important resources for the things that I have available for you that are good things. And yeah, so we didn't make a lot of progress, but we made some progress. Let me go ahead and let me just check out -b. What should we call this branch? Web form. Let's call that. And then we should be updating the package. Update.js. Does that need to be updated? No, that doesn't really need to be updated. Kind of, sort of, whatever. But we do need to update, let's see, public. All of that should be kept. Server. We want that. AJ script. Oh, interesting. Oh no, that's AJ script versus AJ query. We do need to add AJ script. The app.js, I'm pretty sure I only used that because, yeah, I just created some template stuff in there. We can get rid of that. I think we can get rid of time, but I don't want to get rid of it just yet in case I messed it up. No, I don't think I messed it up. Let me take a look at this one more time. Update time. Where's XTZ at? Right there. To local ISO string. Yeah, I already proved that that was correct. This is a new date. That's correct. All right, so we're going to get rid of time, actually. And I'll go ahead and just add this in the update, even though it's technically something different. It's just a one-liner, so I don't want to. So we're going to do whip start of web form. And then next time I might have to sketch out a little bit better idea of what I want the form to be or how I want the interaction to be. I kind of am imagining a kind of a two-pane system where on the right I select the playlist, and when I select the playlist it brings up the form that has all the elements in it. And then when I click save, well, I want to be able to have drafts. That's one of the main things I want to have out of this, is the ability to have drafts. So I should be able to save to a file, and that should cause the episode or the session number to increment. Anyway, we'll figure it out that next time. So I'm going to go ahead and push this up. And again, anybody catching this on the VOD or whatever it is, feel free to drop me a comment. I don't know how you do comments on Twitch on VODs, but head over to YouTube. Yeah, Twitch is for live stuff anyway, right? Cool. Well, adios, y'all. Have a good night. Oh, I already said my adios. I'm going to say it again anyway. Adios.